adjourned.
Nice.
Gentlemen, that was only a joke. We haven't adjourned. We're going to start. Good evening and welcome to the, is this what you just gave me? May 8th, 2013. Thank you, Susan. Meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. I don't seem to have
Sorry. You don't seem to have
an agenda. Okay, here, he gave me one.
Thank you.
No, he doesn't have one.
No, Ed doesn't.
We can cure that.
Okay, the first item is discussion and vote Atria Conservation Restriction 300 Committee.
Hello, I'm Jessica Rittenauer, Administrator of the 300 Committee, and I'm here this evening to present the final draft conservation restriction and the conservation restriction plan, excuse me, for the conservation restriction of the Atria Woodbriar property on Gifford Street. And the conservation restriction will cover 14.75 acres. It's adjacent to the buildings that I'm sure many of you have seen under construction for the senior care retirement facility. The 300 Committee Land Trust agreed to accept this property as a donation from the Atria Woodbriar Group so that we could own and manage it as one of Falmouth's open spaces. The conservation restriction is a requirement of the development permit, and the Zoning Board of Appeals, in fact, required that there be a permanent conservation restriction on the 14.75 acres. So the land will be owned by the 300 Committee, and we will be conveying a conservation restriction to the Compact of Conservation Trusts, which is located in Barnstable. This is a special property in the sense that there is rare and sensitive habitat. The Division of Fisheries and Wildlife has been involved in reviewing the conservation restriction and is required also to sign the conservation restriction because much of this property falls into the Endangered Species Act. Part of the property is within an endangered species habitat area. So some of the features I'll just mention briefly. There is an Atlantic white cedar swamp. The property has 700 feet of shoreline on Jones Pond, and it has 800 feet of shoreline on Souls Pond up in this corner. As I mentioned, it has priority habitat for rare species. It is within the town's Little Pond Coastal Pond Overlay District, and it's also abutting the town of Falmouth's wildlife foraging corridor. There is a utility easement that runs through the property. You can see these lines here. So that's an area of the property where mowing is allowed, and that's written into the conservation restriction. There's also a reserved right to mow a view shed from this area here, where there would be 6 benches. The additional area for mowing would be in between here and the utility easement, which would open up a little bit more of a view shed. But we are very limited in what we can do with the mowing. It's less than twice a year, and it must be between September 15th and April 30th. And before we would mow the property, we would need to consult with the Division of Wildlife, and they would do a walkthrough. So it's very regulated in the sense of how that's handled. So we were careful to clearly define in the conservation restriction itself which areas can be mowed. Much of the rest of the conservation restriction is boilerplate in the sense of trees felled by storms are to remain in place unless they're blocking a trail or something to that effect. One additional special feature is that there's a reserved right to construct boardwalks. There were boardwalks at the site previously when it was the golf course, and when Atria acquired the property and was preparing for the development, they removed the boardwalks because I don't believe that they were in a very safe condition. But we do have reserved rights at such time when the 300 committee either receives a grant or some sort of funding where we can install the boardwalks. So there is a section in the reserved rights that specifies how long they can be, where they shall be located, et cetera. Are there questions about the conservation restriction or the property?
Let's see. Let's start with Courtney.
No questions.
Joe?
No questions.
Has natural heritage indicated what rare species we're talking about here?
One of the species of concern that they mentioned was the eastern box turtle.
And they had I don't know if you've had a chance to read the specific recommendations as to what could be done when because of that.
Right, that's,
Yeah.
okay. So, natural heritage had some input into it, or?
Yes, and
Okay.
they actually have to sign the conservation restriction. Most conservation restrictions go to the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. This one will have to do that as well, but in addition, it will have to go to the division, the Natural Heritage Department, and the CR has to be approved at that level as well.
Thank you.
I'm happily endorsing this. I like the caveat of the boardwalks, because they were originally there. I did get to see a turtle laying eggs when this project started. So it's a very big envelope of that property that is going to be protected. So I'm very happy with this.
Good.
Tommy?
No questions.
Mike?
No questions.
I just want to make a comment. I'm actually glad you're having you're going to have some mowed areas, because it's going to provide a more heterogeneous habitat, and it'll be I'm sure that's a good birding spot.
Right.
I haven't talked to any of the birders in town, but, you know, the proximity of those two ponds and
Exactly.
the mixed woodlands and some open spaces
Right,
should be nice.
yeah, great.
Good.
So there is a municipal certificate, I don't know if you have a copy of it, that spells out the features of the parcel.
Yeah, and I think we have it.
You do have that,
Yeah.
okay. Good.
Okay, if there are no more questions, before we call for the vote, are there any questions from the audience? Okay.
I
let's have a
motion to accept the conservation restriction as written and discussed.
Second?
Okay, final chance for comments. Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept the conservation restriction as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
It's always nice to have you visit us.
Thanks very much.
Nice to get another piece of paper off the pile. You're welcome to stay.
I think I'll go home for dinner.
Oh, okay, what a good idea. Okay, minutes of 4:17.
Make a motion to accept.
Oh, I'll come back to the request for continuance in a minute. We have a motion to accept the minutes of 4:17.
17.
Second.
Any questions on the board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Let's do the minutes of 4:24.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of 4:24.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Okay, request for a continuance under an enforcement issue. Ronald Bauer, trustee, 43 Gunning Point Road and Gunning Point Road. For altering wetland resource areas and in buffered resource areas as defined in FWR 10.00 and 310 CMR 10.00. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the parties involved are requesting one more continuance. I know this has been a long process.
And they're very close to
They are
resolution,
very
is what I've been
close.
told by 3 parties today.
So the staff is recommending, or the applicants would like a continuance till June 5th, and the staff would recommend that.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, are there any comments before we take the vote? Okay, all in favor of a continuance to June 5th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous, so moved. Okay. Request for determination of applicability.
Madam Chairman, did you vote May 1st minutes?
I did not vote May 1st, but I didn't have them, so I figured nobody
Okay.
else had them.
And I didn't have either, so I'm right with you.
Nobody had them. I deliberately skipped May 1st because I figured nobody had read them, and in fact, they have them. So, on to request for determination of applicability. Deborah Hebert, 164 Antler Shore Road, East Falmouth, for permission to pump, fill, and abandon the existing cesspool and install a new Title V sewage disposal system, replace a concrete wall and sidewalk, and to remove a tree.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the staff has reviewed the project. We're recommending a -2 under the bylaw, and -3 under the state with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? All in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Crowley Family Trust, care of Jamie Crowley, 41 Millfield Street and 18 Park Street, Woods Hole, for permission to install and maintain a new water service from Millfield Street over Lot 1 to existing house on Lot 2.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved. Second.
Any comments on the board? Any comments from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Allen White Trust, 68 Waterside Drive, Falmouth, for permission to repair an existing dock that includes redriving, pilings, and decking replacement.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we've reviewed the project. We're recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and 2 seconds on the table. And we have a question.
Yeah, shellfish and so forth and where these new pilings are being driven?
No,
Okay,
no.
thank you.
This is a replacement for a dock that was damaged during
Yeah.
Sandy, and they're just getting around to realizing how damaged it is and to repair it. So it was one of they missed the window of repair during the emergency regs, so we had them file an RDA.
Yeah.
It's
So my
absolutely
only
same-
question, not was so much that it was shellfish issue, is other than if there are shellfish, they should be
No,
relayed
not
out.
necessary.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any opposed? None opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Ware Family Limited Partnership, care of Chip Schultz, 188 Gansett Avenue, Woods Hole, for permission to remove large concrete debris from the former stanchion project within wetland resource area and to repair the existing concrete pier stanchion that includes power washing the concrete surface, drilling and grouting rebar into the concrete, constructing plywood formwork with sheet gasket on bottom, pumping concrete, and to remove framework once completed.
Madam Chair, I recuse.
Okay, thanks, Tommy. Did you get that, Susan? Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chairman, this property has a little bit of a history with the board. Back in 2003, an RDA was filed with you for repairs. At that time, the applicant had brought in a particular, said the work was going to be done by one contractor in a very controlled manner, and unfortunately, another contractor did the work, and it resulted in the work not being done quite as the commission had, it had been relayed to the commission. This time around, it is a very sensitive area. This time around, the permit is being issued to the contractor, proposed to do the work. I understand the papers in front of you say a +3. I've had the opportunity to go out there and review this RDA myself. I've met with the contractor who will be issued this determination, and I feel that the way the work is going to be done only thing, and if I could ask the contractor a quick question. Chip, could you explain how you're gonna remove the large pieces of concrete off the beach? You're just gonna,
Chip, you're gonna come up here and tell us.
My name is Chip Schultz, W.S. Schultz Company. And the concrete big slabs got taken, already pulled ashore.
okay, yeah, I was wondering, I don't
So-
remember seeing them when we went out to that.
We do have to probably cut them in half.
Okay, that's
you know,
fine.
And we just lift them off.
At this time, I'm gonna recommend a -2 under the state of the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Or-
I'd like to amend that to say that if the contractor designated is not the one who does the work, that the RDA doesn't exist. I don't know how you state
The
that.
RDA will be issued to,
If you follow what I mean.
Yeah, the
just so-
RDA, of course, the RDA is issued to Chip, and so he's the only one that's able to execute it.
Okay, fair enough.
Chip, the RDA is issued to you. So what we're saying is, if for some reason you can't do it,
No one else
no one else can.
can. And
Without coming back.
My crew is going to be.
No, understood. I know how these things work, that's all.
and I think that's what happened the last time, but we've been assured, have taken the necessary precautions
Okay,
to
it's good, I'm
to
cool.
work with the contractor in this case.
Okay, so I do believe we have a motion and a second on the table to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. Are there any other questions on the
Just
board?
maybe one, is it possible to make the add a specific condition in the RDA, that the work be done by?
Yes, we've covered that, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what we say.
That will
It
be
can
in
only
writing.
be done.
That will be in writing?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Chip. You're also welcome to stay. You're going home, too. All right. Yeah, I like these comments as people leave.
Everybody's going home for dinner.
Leo Perito, 14 Avenue A, East Falmouth, for permission to conduct repairs to the existing licensed seawall using chink stones, incorporate approximately 35 cubic yards of sand, and plant a 5-foot wide strip of beach grass landward of the wall, and plant 12 bayberry shrubs.
Mr. McGrath? Oh, I'm already.
It's
hold
you,
on.
it's your
It's
turn,
me.
it's not
Negative,
Mike.
sorry. -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed. I was already on the next hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions?
Sorry about
Here,
that.
Mike. Second, over here. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Are there any questions? Are there any questions from the audience? All in favor of the motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Request for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are heard simultaneously under the authority of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority.
I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, before I even start. Chapcoit Associates, care of Jonathan Harley, 20 and 26 Associates Road, West Falmouth, for permission to maintain and repair approximately 277 linear feet of an existing licensed stone pier that includes clearing for construction access, temporary excavation of coastal dune adjacent to the stone jetty, cleaning, filling voids, mortaring, grouting, and pointing both eastern and western sides of the jetty, widening the existing concrete walkway, handrail installation, dune restoration, restoration with native plantings, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, just to let the board know, there is an element of this project that has already begun that I have allowed because the invasive species
Right.
removal is being done on the adjacent property by the same
We saw it.
parties, yes, that they requested that they be allowed
do
to
it all
move
themselves.
forward, and I said they could as long as the notice of intent was filed. So as soon as they filed it, we allowed them to move forward with the invasive species removal only.
And I don't know if you got out there today, but it looks lovely. They're
Yes.
doing a great job.
Mhm.
Good evening, Mike.
Good evening. My name is Michael McGrath. I'm a registered engineer and registered professional land surveyor, and my firm, Holmes McGrath, prepared the plan. This is called Big Pier on Chappaquiddick Island, and the location is that this is at the northwesterly end of Chappaquiddick Island. There's a historic, I shouldn't say historic, an old structure that projects into West Falmouth Harbor. It's privately constructed. It is significant to storm damage prevention because it does provide significant storm damage prevention to West Falmouth Harbor. The location actually is that there's currently a house under construction at 20 Associates Road, and there is a right-of-way that comes down. And when we surveyed this and permitted it, it turns out that the pier was not in the same location as shown in 1898. So there's been an easement that's been recorded at the registry so that the associates do own the structure. And what we're trying to do is address a series of failures that are occurring. If you go out and walk down the site, the dune is collapsing. The dune is collapsing in an area approximately in here. So what I've done here is I've shown a cross-section of what we propose to do. This is the cross-section of the existing structure, and what we're going to do is we're going to expose, in this area, the underground face of the existing structure. I've assumed it to be more or less regular, though it may be irregular. And what we're proposing is we're actually going to install concrete in this area and then cover this over with a impermeable membrane. And what we're trying to do is stop water from washing sand through the pier. If you go on the other side after a storm, you can see some bright yellow where the sands actually wash through this structure. At the same time, we're going to grout or seal the West Falmouth harbor side the entire length. So that describes, after we do this work, we then have to restore this. And what we're showing is that there's a dune that comes from here back. This is beach. The work limit line we've staked is we're assuming that we may have to examine more of this, and that the failure may not just be where the collapse is in the dune, but we have to excavate down. We picked an area that's down to the coastal beach, and after the repair is done, we obviously have to bring in compatible sand, make the surface the same elevation as it appeared to be. We're showing that this area that's shaded in green that's currently dune would be replanted with the American beach grass in staggered rows 1 foot on center. In this area, there is we need to have a stockpile area, and we are showing that this area is going to be replanted with native species from your approved list in that area after the work is done. If I should go back into the path, because we find that the path actually encroaches onto the land of Paul Archibald, so we're showing the path to be moved over, and there's going to be some plants in here that are existing that would be taken out, and there's new native plants shown in this area. All along this pier, if you walk out there, especially with young children, there is quite a drop. So one of the things that the Chappaquiddick Associates would like to do is, and this is a cross-section that's about halfway down, and what they'd like to do is this existing concrete walk, they want to add basically a foot to it and also put on a new handrail. All along the part where there's riprap, we're showing, go back to the plan, I should have put these in two, I'm sorry. We're showing that this is to be chinked. There are certain places where there are missing armor stones, so we're asking we're describing on the plan that the contractor will select armor stones or reset select armor stones along this face. And we're also proposing to chink that riprap all along the Buzzards Bay side. On the West Falmouth side, we're showing continually that the wall is going to be grouted. At section CC, which is right in there, right opposite the float, there's a void underneath the concrete walk. It's hard to see right now, but if the float was in, you can look down and you can actually see through the pier. So we're showing that we're going to fix the void. The void's to be filled with large trap rock that will be chinked into place, forced into place, and locked into place. And then there'll be a selected stone armor stone that would be set to hold that in place. The handrail is shown to go all the way out, but on this cross section, I forgot it. I'd like to submit a revised plan just to show that handrail is on that section too. It's clearly shown to go the whole length down on all of the drawings. So it's just missing on that cross section. So I believe that that's an adequate description of all the work. We do have a comment from Marine Fisheries that came to us, and they've asked for, I could read these aloud. There's 4 things. At a minimum, all excavated film material should be deposited above the mean high water mark to minimize impacts on the intertidal habitat, including shellfish resources. Obviously, that would be something that we normally do. Beach film material should be equal grain size and appropriate slope to avoid premature loss from the beach and impacts to the near shear bottom habitat consistent with Mass DEP Beach Nourishment Guide. No seaward encroachment of the beach fill would be allowed. We are describing, obviously, that we're going to repair the beach, so it's appropriate to include that as a condition. Appropriate containment techniques should be used to prevent construction debris or loose sediments from moving onto the beach or into West Falmouth Harbor. That's obviously something you can condition. And then it said the mortar material used to grout the pier should not be toxic to aquatic and marine environments. Some mortar and grout materials on the market are unsafe for use in the water. Obviously, that is a suitable condition. I also got an email from Greg Frazier that says, I'll give you a copy, but I'd just like to read. Although I'm not formally reviewing your filing for tonight's Conservation Commission, it is my understanding you are proposing to widen the walkway on top of the stone dock and add a handrail for safety reasons. This type of project is outside my jurisdiction as it relates to navigation and/or moorings. I can say I feel strongly that the stone structure does provide significant storm damage prevention for the harbor. Without that structure, the harbor would certainly be more at risk for storm-weighted relief action. There's 2 copies. So I'm here to answer any questions that the commission or the staff might have concerning the application.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Jen, any questions?
No. No, I've been out there with Mike and others over the past couple of years. watching this collapse of the dune on the other side, that we need to have it repaired. Mike, can you answer me one question? How far out do we have to excavate? I missed that.
He said he wasn't sure.
You don't know yet?
I
Not how
bel-
far down, how far?
I believe that the, it would be an estimate. This shows that this is 6 feet out, and then it's a one-to-one slope that's down 6 feet, so that's a total of 12 feet.
Yeah, 12
But that's pretty messy because it's in a dune.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know of any other way of doing it.
I wonder if you could put a temporary, sheet there?
6 feet deep's awful. I don't think temporary sheeting would work without
To-
some bracing,
To
because
hold up?
it's 6 foot.
Yeah, it's pretty, yeah. Be pretty unwieldy to
Yes.
get that out there.
Yeah, and then I have to take it out.
Well,
You'll be restoring that soon.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
Tommy?
No, I would just say that this is a valuable structure to the association and the town, that it definitely needed repair, and that's what they're proposing, so, for it.
Ed?
Yes. When I visited the site, I did observe that the limit of work on the top side there, is that north?
Oh, it's
West.
West. Seemed a little bit larger than necessary. However, I also noticed a lot of restoration work has already taken place on some of the adjacent properties. And I guess I have a high level of confidence that whatever might be done will be restored to at least as good a condition as is now, and hopefully even better. And I guess, Mike, what you described as dune collapsing, I'd rather call it sinkholes developing, probably caused by the sand leaking through the structure there. I mean, if it's simply a dune collapsing, well, that's what dunes normally do. But I don't think that's really the appropriate way to describe what I saw. But you do have these sinkholes developing, and the sand is, yes, finding its way through the structure somehow. So that's sort of a technicality, but sometimes I think the language is important. So I guess I'm okay with what you want to do there. Again, because I have confidence that it will be restored to at least as good as what it is now. Another issue I had was on expanding this walkway by a foot. I mean, it's been there for over 100 years and seems to have served a lot of people very well over that period of time, and so I was prepared to ask, is it really necessary? But you've already spoken about the safety aspect. And you're going to put a rail up there which doesn't currently exist. And so I guess, well, I have concerns about expanding any kind of an existing structure in a varsity zone, or expanding any ripraps or anything here, or groins. I guess I can be persuaded that the safety issue is important enough, even though you haven't produced any documentation that anybody's fallen off and be hurt. It still is a, I guess if I had little kids, I'd want to be holding their hands every time we walked out on there. So I take that into account, and I guess I can be flexible. That's my speech.
Mike?
During the presentation, Mike, you used the word impermeable liner. I think you meant filter fabric along the west side of that, of the chinking mechanism?
I was actually going to, I believe I specified not filter fabric, but something that's,
Plan refers to a proposed double-layer filter fabric.
filter fabric would be, you're right, I called it filter fabric, so I was imprecise when I used the word impermeable liner.
I personally, for the application, like the filter fabric, so you made me even happier, Mike, so.
There's no reason.
No
to
further
change the
questions.
plan.
Mario?
Mike, can you give us an idea of just how much of that dune is going to be excavated? Can you give me a percentage or square footage or something? You know, anything to get a grasp on exactly how much of that dune is going to be excavated.
Right now, there's signs between our, we've been out there a couple times, but there's 70 feet that appears to have slumping. The worst is in the center,
This is in proximity to the pier, yeah.
right next to the pier. So if we said it was 80 feet times 12, that's almost 1,000 square feet.
Okay. And you think you're going to need that kind of a cut to repair the wall, or can you this is a primary coastal dune in rare species habitat. I'm a little uncomfortable, to tell you the truth, with bringing heavy equipment out and carving up a primary dune.
Well, it's going to get a lot worse if there's a significant storm event. So
I'm
I
not saying
think
that
it's
repairs
appropriate.
are needed, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
You know.
That when we inspect it, we don't need the kind of work area I'm showing. So it would seem to me that the appropriate thing is that we start at the voids, and then we excavate each way till we find that what appears to be a solid structure. So I could do that exploratory excavation first and not go out as far as I show here. So I could file a work procedure that would describe it.
Obviously, you're keeping it to a minimum.
Keeping it to a minimum, yes.
Have we heard from Natural Heritage yet on this? Did I miss that? Or?
I'm not sure it's in rare and endangered species.
Do we know what species is involved here at all? Or?
No, we're outside the species. There's rare and endangered in the water, but nothing on the,
Terns, it's terns in the water.
Is what?
Terns. Terns?
Cones.
No, terns, T-E-R-N-S.
Oh, okay.
They were there when Ed and I walked out on the pier today.
Mike, can you file a construction methodology?
yes,
So
I just
So
agreed
the
to.
commission's a little
Yes.
bit more comfortable on how you're gonna do the work in this
Yes,
primary dune area?
right, and we did follow MISA, so I have not heard anything from MISA. Have you heard from MISA?
No.
So you'll have to continue?
I have to continue because of that
Continue,
anyways.
and that'll give you time to file a detailed work methodology, so the board has a little bit more comfort level on the excavation part of this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else for you?
No, I'm all set.
Michelle?
No questions.
Court?
My only comment is that several years back, when the property was owned by the Leonards, I remember looking at that whole situation and noting that it was, even then, 5 or 6, 7 years ago, needing repair. So I think what you're proposing is a good project, but we do need the methodology.
I have a couple of questions, Mike. So you're planning to grout out sort of out to, I guess that's mean low water? Is that what your line is?
I'm sorry, you mean here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we grout the entire face.
Oh, the entire face?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
and-
because if you go out there, the sand's coming through in the inner tidal zone.
Well, I know you're going to grout towards the land. I was wondering if you're going to be grouting all the way to the end.
Yes,
You are.
yes.
So you're going to chink and grout all the way
I'm gonna
out.
chink the riprap, but this has been traditionally mortared, so I was gonna grout that.
Okay. My question is, I understand your concern, but the fact is the dune is leaking away as it is with the situation as it is. I would prefer that in the methodology, they actually do all they can do right now. I mean, they're planning to pull it away, put filter fabric in, put the sand back in. As long as we're gonna do it, let's do it right. So you're not back here, in 5 years from now, because it's spread.
I hope I can come back in 5 years.
Well, you're welcome back any time, but on this particular project.
Oh, I understand.
I mean, as long as you're gonna be doing the work and disturbing stuff there, let's get it repaired. I mean, this is a major, if this were to be torn apart in a major storm, that would have, wreak major havoc in West Falmouth Harbor.
Oh, for sure.
And it is kind of crumbling right now.
Okay.
Okay, and the other question I have, Ed and I were there, and I was trying to figure out, when you said you were gonna add an extra foot,
Yes.
so exactly how are you gonna do it? Because some of that walkway, as you pointed out, is over a void right now.
There's a large portion of it that we're building on top of the concrete. There's a portion where it will be affixed to the stones. There's even an area out by the, way out at the end where this will be, it might even be an overhang to be put out near the very end of it. So, but I think it's important to have this.
Is the whole
There's a-
concrete walkway gonna be replaced? Is that what you're talking about?
No, we were just gonna leave that in place.
Leave it there and
Yeah.
and just drill into it?
Yes.
To support whatever
Yes.
you're adding?
Yeah. 2 years ago, I ran out of gas in my outboard. So I was rowing, and
Can I make a comment
There-
on that?
No, you can't. No, you may not.
the point of the story
Mike ran out
was
of gas.
that I'm just trying to describe
Neither of
why,
you can make a comment.
when I rode by, there was an awful lot of people on this. So this is a very popular structure. I actually rode over onto the other side, so some of my clients wouldn't see the klutz that went out of gas.
You could have told us, you could have
The
told us it
reason
was
I'm telling
popular
you
without
that is,
even
that's
knowing
the
it.
reason I know that there's very popular structure on the island. There's a lot of people that use that constantly, so it is highly used.
You could have said that you noticed as you went in and out through that inlet.
You're probably right.
Courtney?
At the request of the applicant, I move we continue this until,
Mikey, we have it stamped in on the 17th, so you should have a response from Natural Heritage, I would say, by the 15th. You want to just go to the next week or the 22nd? Let's go to the 22nd?
Of May?
May, yeah.
Yes, I request a continuance
Second?
to the 22nd of May.
to
Okay.
finish my motion, 22nd of May.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Do we have any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is for continuance to May 22nd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Good night.
Happy rowing, Mike.
Mike, you're welcome to stay here also.
He's going to eat too.
I'd rather go home and watch the Bruins in.
Oh, just rub it in a little more.
Before he runs out of
We,
gas.
we know where your loyalties lie.
You're still trying to catch the end of candidates night.
Oh, they're down 2-0.
Who's that? Bruins?
Yeah.
Yes.
Continued request for hearings under a notice of intent. Charles and Susan Moran, 402 Wild Harbor Road, North Falmouth, for permission to reconstruct an existing 340 linear foot riprap retaining wall that includes regarding and filling behind the wall, clearing for construction access, replacement of utilities and vegetation after construction, rebuild of wood retaining wall, repaving of the driveway, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Mario, are you recusing yourself?
I'm recusing it, I should have
Okay.
said that. I recuse myself.
Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any of my comments until after Jack's presentation.
Good
He
evening,
already
Jack.
knows my comments.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jack Landers-Colley. I'm a civil engineer in private practice, and I've been retained by the Morans to present prepare the plans, the application, and make the presentation this evening. I want to begin by, first of all, thanking the board for continuing the meeting. I wasn't present 2 weeks ago, and I appreciate what you did, and I want to thank you. Why don't I begin? I think the place to begin is a little bit about the history of the property, and also some of the activities that have been taking place there. We're proposing to reconstruct a riprap wall that starts at this groin and is at the westerly end of the property line and go due east into the harbor. It's about 340 feet long. To the best of our knowledge, it isn't licensed. However, having said that, I've actually found it on a licensed plan, but it wasn't referenced as part of the actual license, so I was confused by that. I sent a letter to the Department of Conservation and Recreation and asked for clarification. I didn't get one. However, having said that, we also did additional research, and we know that in 1950 there wasn't a wall. In 1960, we believe there was a wall. 1968 coal lease document, aerial photography, shows a wall, and what we did is we solicited some information from the neighbor, and she asserted that in 1965 there was a riprap wall there. So we've narrowed it down. Sometime between 1960 and 65, that wall was built. But again, to the best of my knowledge, I don't see it. I couldn't find any evidence of its recording. In a plan prepared by Brayman Engineering, they happen to show this wall, and they also show elevations. And the elevations that we propose this wall to be are consistent with the elevations that are shown on the Brayman plan. And what that showed is, at this end, it was about elevation 8, 8.5, and then as it got to this end, it was 11.5 in terms of elevation. And if you look at the property, it makes sense. To the west, we're closer to the bay. To the west, we have more violent activity, more energy in the water. And as we head east, we're getting into the harbor, and it's less violent and it's less active. So the need for a large wall, I think, by the people who built it said, well, common sense, it should be larger here, and down here it can be a little bit smaller. So keeping with the intent of the commission, we kept it to the same scale. Plus, I didn't see the necessity of making a large wall here, although I might have suggested to make the wall taller at this end. We didn't. We also, for purposes of information, I also have a photocopy of a 1998 aerial GIS photography, and shows the wall starts here and ends over there. And this also gives you an idea of where we are in terms of the energy level of the bay. This project goes back to 1998 for me because I was retained by the Morants to give them an opinion about the property prior to them buying it. That is, the Title V, the area, what they could do and couldn't do. And at that time, we couldn't find evidence of the licensing. Having said that, in 1998, they asked me about rebuilding the wall. I said it wasn't needed. Some 5 years later, they asked me again. I said I still didn't think it was needed. Add another 5 years, and I'm thinking it did because of some of the storms we've had. And so now, some 15 years later, or I should say about 13 and a half years later, I gave them a different opinion. I said, based on the storms and the erosion behind the wall, you really need to fix it. Because at that point, they were losing upland. So at that point, they couldn't ignore it anymore. And what happens is, if you were to go out there now, you would see, and I took pictures of this back in May of 2012, and those are just two identical such, of the condition of the shoreline. And in fact, the eroded area in this area is the same as those plants, except right, I think right in here where we had some additional erosion that we located. So we actually have a lot of historical information in the surveys we've done, and it has retreated in various areas episodally, mostly between this area and this area. What it is we'd like to do is rebuild it in the same location, and in conjunction with that, we also want to stabilize this whole disturbed area. Our construction axis, we've proposed at Wild Harbor Road, go down the existing driveway. The driveway comes, it circles here, but what we would like to do is cut this side of the driveway off to try to flatten the grade a little bit, come in at a gentler slope, come down here. And basically what they have to do is they have to come down, remove the stone. I had actually spoke with Jennifer about this, and she gave me some advice, and we're going to use that. We were originally going to propose the stone be laid to the south. Since it already exists there, I thought if we had it in the upper reaches of the intertidal area, it wouldn't be problematic. We were given another suggestion, and we're going to do that, and it'll have to be narrated later on. But what we intend to do is move the stone to the north and work our way out backwards. And what that's going to require is they're going to have to build about 40 feet, 40 lineal feet, 50 lineal feet, backfill behind it, build another 40 to 50 feet backfill behind it, and bring the grade to what we call rough grade, that is within 6 inches of finished grade. The theory being the heavy excavation work is done by one contractor, the fine grading is done by a landscaper. The landscaper needs to know that the finished grades are within 6 inches of whatever's out there. They top dress it with loam, and they plant the material. Having said that, Vaccaro Associates prepared a landscaping plan, and it's not at the same scale, but it's graphically correct, and it shows the species, the location. And having said that, what we've done is we've highlighted in the axis area where he plants will be over here is over here, and then the remaining area is highlighted in here.
Thank you.
In order to do this work, we need a construction staging area. We have one right here where there's an existing paved area, and we call it storage area for construction equipment, and the other is over here. And what's going to happen is, if you take a look at those pictures, there is an area with a lot of American beach grass and some Phragmites. As you go further west, the invasives are more dominant, and there's a lot of Phragmites in this area. The plus side to this project is that anywhere below the existing bank It's basically gravel, cobble, stone. The invasives are going to be removed. We will backfill it with a granular material similar in composition as what exists out there. And then they will plant it within the indigenous plants as described by Jack Vaccaro. And to accomplish this job, they really need 2 staging areas, like I said, one here and one down here. We chose this route because of the slope, the fact that it's upland here, that is upland plants, there are upland plants here, there's lawn here, and we couldn't get too close to this bulkhead. I thought about bringing the traveled way or axis further northeast, but I don't want to jeopardize the stability of this bulkhead, so what I did is I bisected it and basically took half the lawn and half of this slope right in here, and again, we show proposed plantings there. We got a letter from the Department of Marine Fisheries. They would like to see us push it back as much as possible. So we originally proposed a 2-to-1 slope. It's now changed to 1.5 to 1. Just give you a frame of reference, that pushes the wall back about 3 feet because of the change in slope. Having said that, if you were to look at the aerial photography of 1960, 1968, 1975, and now 1998, in every photo, starting from the early years forward, you can see one thing. There's less and less beach here. Back in the 60s, it was quite prominent. 68, it was a little less so. 75, a little less. And now in 78, it's basically a cobble beach. And since I've had the opportunity of working here 15 years, this spit has grown. So what we do is we have a littoral process, as you can see, from the scalloping effect of the groins. It's heading northeast, it's being stripped, and it's depositing here. It's absolutely incumbent this wall be rebuilt. And the reason I say that is we are losing shoreline, but the town actively wants to keep this area open for boating. And in my research, I also checked that in 2005, the Conservation Commission approved the dredging project for this area. So it's clear to me that there's a lot of man-made activities outside the control of the marina. And quite frankly, they would be the first to say, if you're dredging it, we'd be happy to accept the sand along here. But they do need to retain that slope. They do need to stabilize it. It qualifies. It was built prior to, the house was built prior to 78. It was built sometime, I think, prior to 1950. I think we've done a prudent thing and proven that there is a problem, it is eroding, and it needs to be stabilized. Having said that, this area is a velocity zone. I don't think anyone's surprised. What's unusual about it is you have a velocity zone that goes to a B zone, then on this backside it's an A zone. And don't ask me why FEMA labeled it that way. Have no clue. But that's what we extracted from the FEMA maps. We do show the resource areas. I do have to make a modification of the plan because I realized today when I was coloring this, I didn't show the buffers. So I will show the buffer from the salt marsh here. I'll show the buffer off the bank. I do show, well actually I drew it in, the buffer from the salt marsh right here. But I will depict that in a permanent way on the plan. I think that's about it. Can I answer any questions?
Okay, Jack, could you also, one of the things that I was looking for was the V-zone. You have it over here, but it's not clear as to where the V-zone is all the way across.
Oh, it starts here, and then it's hard to depict. It's a busy plan. Line, dot, dot, line, goes right along here, all the way up to V15 elevation
15.
22.
All right.
So here it is, right in this area.
Okay. Jen,
Jack, you're also gonna show the riprap being pulled, the revetment being pulled back in accordance with DMF's letter, yes?
Yeah, backside. This is the same drawing at a large scale. It just blows up that area. And what's a little confusing about it, but you
No,
know,
what I said is you said you needed to pull
You
the
said you were
wall
gonna pull
landward,
it back.
correct?
You were gonna
We
pull
are.
the wall.
I
We
need a plan
We need
showing
to see
that.
that.
This plan is very, it's vague, so I need a plan showing exactly where this wall is going to be,
okay.
okay?
Yep.
And if you could come here for 1 second, Jack, I have a question I have to ask you, and I need to show you what I'm talking about. What is this line?
Okay, I'll explain.
And wait, one more, and the wall's not gonna come up here, it's gonna come from here down, right?
Well, this is a bit of
No,
portrayal of it,
in
yeah.
this area.
No, that's all gonna be filled. for the
Okay.
most part.
What, filled with plants?
We are,
Yeah, filled with plants.
Because of the Division of Marine Fisheries requirement, we are going to be pushing it back a couple of feet. This line, that line you were asking me about,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the profile of a property, of a riprap wall, this line represents,
Where you wanted to put your toast on.
no, this is where the toe stone is underground. For a retaining wall to be effective, or a riprap wall to be effective, the depth of the toe stone is important, because you don't want to undermine the riprap wall, otherwise it will fail at the toe. So what happens is, we typically look at an area and say, okay, what is the minimum depth of the toe stone we would require in order to keep this stable? In this case, we chose -3, that is -3 NGVD.
That outer line, Jack, is that the proposed toast stone or where it exists today?
This is where the proposed toe stone is going to be.
And the line I just showed you?
And this line right here is where the wall would be above the ground. This is where it is below the ground. This is where it is as it erupts out of the ground.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yep.
Okay. We clearly have room to move it back a little, and I'm not surprised the DMF made that opinion. It was very much boilerplate to what Mike McGrath said, and I don't know if they sent you a copy or not. If they
I
didn't,
haven't seen one yet.
if they haven't sent you one, we will get you a copy.
Okay, Jack, we're gonna need another plan showing exactly where you're proposing to
Right.
put this.
Right.
Because one of our concerns, Jack, is you have this eroding coastal bank there, that's almost above the revetment. We don't want that armored.
Well, I told you the elevation's 12. I told you it's going, in fact, it's depicted right here. It says top of riprap elevation 12. You can see the contours here is 16, it's 13 here, but it's going to be 12, and so what's going to happen is they're going to fill behind it and plant behind it.
Okay, because on
Same
the
with
plan,
this.
you have height and width varies, so it's not,
That's
you
right.
know,
It's 12 here, 12 here, 10 here, 8 here. It specifies the total, the maximum height. It may be necessary, based on what DMF says, that I have to change this slope from 1.5 to 1 to maybe 1.25 to 1 or 1 to 1 in order to get that space. We originally designed it for 2 to 1, but that took such a large area, we then compressed it to 1.5 to 1, and then DMF said, get it out of mean high water if you can. So that's our goal. Ancillary, we applied for the Army Corps of Engineers. We got a permit from them. We wanted to apply with a Chapter 91. In fact, we attempted to do all those filings at the same time, but Ladio said he will not sign off the application for the Chapter 91 until I get an order of conditions. So it's kind of a catch-22 at that point. But it's our intent to apply with the state. We understand you don't want to fill to the top. That's not our goal. In fact, it's not the Moran's goal. They would like to see some planting there. If I were going to rip wrap it, I would make it a flatter slope and just bring it all the way up. That's not what we did. We made it steeper so that we would fill behind it and we would plant. Plus,
Actually,
I thought
Jack,
the
you wouldn't be
mandate
able
by
to
the
bring it
commission
all
would
the
be
way
to
up.
plant it anyway, so we just went right to that.
You wouldn't be able to bring it all the way up.
So,
Let's just move on. with
okay.
Questions? Tommy?
No questions.
No questions.
Courtney, and-
Can any of this be done from a barge to minimize the?
I had considered that, and we actually put it out to 4 contractors for a preliminary bid. One of them said he would do it by barge, and the price almost doubled. And so I told him, Rance, spend the money on planting and stabilization, something of value, versus having it done by barge, because going by barge is going to take 3 times as long, maybe 4 times. I'm
Okay,
not sure
you-
you're going to see a
you've convinced-
material
you-
benefit.
You've convinced me.
Okay.
Good. No more further questions.
Is that
I'm good.
it for now? Tomas?
Jack, you was talking about, I'm glad to see you considered going to the north with the stones and the materials and working, you're painting your way out of the corner. I think that's a much smarter option. Do you have any timeline as the, you're saying 40 feet at a time? How many weeks this is gonna actually take?
I knew someone was going to ask the question. They're going to lay about 25 to 35 lineal feet a day. Now, add on to that pre-construction, and post-construction mobilization and demobilization. So if we took 25 feet a day times divided 3, that's 4, that's 12, there'd be 14 working days plus the mobilization, plus the demobilization, plus bringing the material in. So I think 25 feet a day, we'll be lucky. They're probably going to get closer to 15 when you add in the filling that's going to be done behind it. So 15 would be 22 days, more or less.
Yeah, it'd be about a month.
Excuse me.
A month.
About a month.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
That's all I get right now. Thank you.
Michelle?
I was wondering, and maybe it's showing on the plan, and I'm missing it. Is there a limit of work on the upland side of the wall to protect the wooded area while the work is being done? Did you have any intent to do that?
The answer is no. The reason being is it's so badly eroded behind it, I don't see the necessity of it. This is all higher than the wall, and again, if you look at the pictures, you'll see what plants that do exist there are either invasive or would be lost. I mean, and so when I was thinking about it, since we're vertically higher almost all the way along, I didn't see the necessity of it. Now, having said that, I have no problem putting some type of work limit barrier up there.
Well, it's a wooded, I mean, I saw the trees, so the intent is not to be removing or impacting those trees at all during the work. I mean, I don't see trees on the
Other than the ones that are
plan.
other than the ones that are fallen, there's no reason to remove any vegetation there other than unwanted vegetation that is invasive.
Now, many times we ask to have the trees located on plans, even if no work is proposed, to remove them, just so that we have documentation of where they are for future. I don't know if you happen to survey any of the trees on this property?
What she's suggesting is when you come back with the new plan,
I have no problem with
all the trees
that.
that are,
I have no
especially
problem
the
with that.
trees that are, the whole property doesn't have to be surveyed,
No,
all
but
the
within
trees
the,
Along the work area.
within 10 feet of the top of that
that'd be
bank.
nice, yeah.
Well, we'll give you every tree within 20 feet of the top of the bank.
Yeah, fine.
Okay?
Yeah.
We'll specify the size and the species.
Yep.
Okay, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even think about it.
Now, are there trees over by where your construction entrance is as well? That
there's a
might
lot.
need to be located? all
There's,
along
there's some spindly, reaching for the sun trees over here, and quite frankly,
Well, they
I
might
don't
not
know, but
qualify
what
as
we
a
will
tree
do,
to us.
we'll do the same thing, Michelle. We
Okay.
will locate all
That
the
would be
trees
great.
in this area.
Do you anticipate there being any problems with sediment from the work area getting down into a wild harbor? And do you have any plans for erosion and sediment control to
Wow.
prevent that from happening at the toe of your wall?
I actually think there will be some migration. However, it is the same geology that exists in that whole mini environment. The only thing this has is it's coarse grain, because all the fines have either been blown away, or as you know, the lighter the material, the easier it is to transport. So basically, that's a very cobble beach. Unless you get a storm, I don't expect it to move very much. It's not like a silt, it's not like a fine loam, it doesn't have that characteristic.
Well,
And if you were to take a look at this spit, you'd see that every fine that you would normally see on a beach is located right here.
I mean, there's a possibility that equipment could be bringing in fines, and, I mean, there's always a chance for fines during work, even if the base material is not.
Well, the filling should be done after a portion of the wall is built. You can't fill it beforehand. I understand that. I'll have to think, the other side of it is I have to think about that a little bit more.
Okay. I think that there should probably be some plan for that, a turbidity curtain
Yeah.
or something along
Yeah.
those lines. As you're
As you're
doing a
working
segment
away-
of the
as you're
wall,
working
it can be a
way down.
moving,
Yeah,
moving
Our
curtain.
rolling barrier.
A rolling
Correct.
barrier. Those are all my questions, thank you.
Courtney?
You're not, or are you, is the net effect of this gonna be, you're not increasing the height, are you?
Not at all.
Okay. And the pictures you showed us suggest a pretty dynamic environment, there's a fair amount of erosion. And you're saying you're gonna loam and plant that, is that what I'm understanding you're saying?
Yes. And I'll be the first one to tell you, rip-up walls function, the protection they function is it's a function of their size. And I fully expect them to have additional erosion. It's at some point, they have to draw the line in the sand, if I could use that term, and say, enough is enough, we've lost enough of our shoreline, let's protect it. And that was the opinion I've given them for about 15 years. So, could it happen? We could build this wall, or this wall could be built in, let's say September, and we could get a blow in October or November and have damage. But the damage, Courtney, would be to the upland edge of the wall, instead of right now, it's across the whole face of the wall, because there's not enough integrity to that wall to retain the material.
No, I understand, I'm just,
So,
my concern here is that, you know, it's gonna overwash that wall again, and is throwing a lot of loam and nice plants up there. I want more information on what's gonna be planted that's gonna stabilize that.
I'll have Jack answer that question. And I think, to go full circle, yeah, Jack Vaquero's plan, I'll have to ask him what he's doing in the way of loam, because a habitat like this, I would think you would want a plant material that's more tolerant to gravels and sands.
And
Yeah.
salt.
And
Salt,
and
yeah.
I know my limitations. I give it to him, I tell him what the habitat is, and he has to come up with a list. So let him defend that, and I'll ask that question to him.
Okay, now, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, I have a couple, Jack. First of all, I mean, it's clear, one of the first findings Jen is gonna make with this is, it's an eroding coastal bank in a velocity zone. And I'm glad you brought that point up, because my question is, what are you gonna fill behind? I'm not sure we really want loam. I think we're gonna want coarser material behind and sand, and, you know, something that likes to live in that
Yeah.
kind of a harsh
Grass and,
environment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree with you.
There will be conditions on when the work's going to be done, tide restrictions and restrictions on what kind of oil can be used in the machinery and how the machinery has to be stored. Those are normal conditions for projects. I'm just telling you.
Okay. I mean, I've seen machinery use vegetable oil.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Well, that's
I
what-
mean,
Right, I don't know if I can't remember whether you've had one of those projects, but that's generally what we do with projects like this.
I've worked with Gary Tavares years ago, and we employed that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so my question with you is backfill with what, and how are you gonna stabilize before planting? And, is that my last question? And when we're done, all lawn areas here will be Falmouth-friendly lawns.
Well, there's no lawn is going to be created, if that's what you're at. Maybe I misunderstand. No lawn is being proposed.
But any
Okay.
other lawns?
Oh, you mean the maintenance of those areas shall be compliant with the Falmouth
Correct.
friendly?
Madam Chair, I have one more
Yep.
question. Jeff, when you were going over your access and your second staging area, you said something about invasive species removal?
The invasive species, well, you can see Phragmites here. There's some Phragmites invading this Ammophila over here.
Okay.
Those are upland plants, and I don't know what to say other than
Okay, we
they're
don't
upland
have,
plants.
no, the reason I ask is because we don't have any methodology on how you're gonna remove that invasive or control it.
I'll ask Jack that
Okay.
question.
And I hadn't seen it in any of your, materials, so when you said it, it just kind of triggered, so have
Okay.
Jack do that. Amend the plan with the buffers and pulling the wall back. Another condition, that's gonna be on this project, if the board would approve it, would be on-site prior to construction with the chosen contractor. So it'll be the contractor, myself, most likely
Special condition,
you or someone
Contractor.
from your office.
yeah.
You'll need the trees located on those plans on the
Yeah, I have that
flag,
note
and
already.
I'll talk to you tomorrow about, the definition of a tree. We don't want all the little saplings along there. Okay?
And also,
And you'll probably have a condition with a turbidity curtain as they're working, and it's something I can go over with the contractor as well, that'll need to be used while they're working.
Jack has already said that there would be at least 2 different contractors, and given that we've had problems in town before,
We're gonna be on both of them.
yeah, any contractor, from now on, any contractor that's working in a project has to sign, remember, has to sign that they've read the orders of conditions and understand them. Yes.
Just by way of note, the Army Corps of Engineers requires the contractor building the wall to be listed. And so it would be consistent. They don't mention anything about planting, but the
Yeah,
Corps
well,
requires.
We do.
We do,
Okay.
I think, just mirroring other members' comments, site management is gonna be crucial. And there's gonna be many eyes upon you. Let the applicant know that this is a project that they've prepared for over the last decade plus, that all the site management that is gonna be required is only to safeguard their investment, because they do not wanna have a glitch on this.
No, we actually went through this whole exercise short of filing 5 years ago. Got prices for the whole project. They looked at it and said, oh my God, I guess the economy wasn't good enough for them at that time. And they said, well, we're just going to have to wait. Well, we revisited it 2 years ago, because after they saw that storm, they said, well, now we can't ignore it. So I'm aware of what you said. We made a list of those things you need between. I have a question though. When you say the turbidity, when I think of dredging, we usually think of turbidity curtains as ones that float and hang. We're gonna have a little bit of a problem here because the way the tide works, I'll have to check with the contractors. It would actually have to be far enough out so they can drape and
Yeah.
sit in the water. I just
Yeah,
want you to
yeah, we
I
understand.
want you to understand that.
We
Okay.
understand that.
And
Okay,
on
good.
that note,
We know what
Jeff,
the tides are like
What
there.
time of year do they want to do this for?
I'm sorry, what?
What time of year, what's their time frame? When do you think they want to begin work?
I would like to start this project in October.
Okay. I was gonna say, because if you started any sooner, you might want to be talking to the harbor master too.
We can't. We need the Chapter 91 license.
Okay.
So once you issue your order of conditions, we're just sitting, the Chapter 91
No, I
license is sitting in my
understand that,
office
but
for 6 weeks.
If you do it in season,
Okay.
you may want to check with him.
I will.
Any later than next spring, which I don't think would be.
Jack,
they
you
would
need a
look timely
continuance.
on.
Yes.
How long do you need, Jeff?
Well, I can't speak for Jack Vaccaro, so I need a little extra time because of that.
5th of June?
I'm sorry, what?
5th of June?
Oh, it's the 6th, it's the 5th.
As long as that's not problematic with you, that's good with me.
Well, that gives you some time. Is that too
Right,
much time?
that's
I mean,
not
the
too much
only-
time. That
would it would either be that or the 22nd, so you'd have to
Let's
get
shoot for
everything
the-
into us.
At the request of
Next
the
week.
applicant, I move that we continue this hearing until June 5th.
Second.
Any other questions? Any
You already
questions
here
from,
with us that night.
any questions
I
from the
know.
audience? No questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is continuance to June 5th, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank
Jack.
you very
We'll
much.
see you again sometime soon.
You will.
And Jack, I will see you Tuesday.
Okay, enforcement issue, Ronald Bauer, trustee, 46 Gunning Point Road, is continued to June 5th. Continued and hopefully will be
Oh, yeah.
totally resolved by then. Vote orders of condition, Robert Gibson, 77 Bournes Pond Road, East Falmouth.
Forum.
Jen,
Oh, I don't have my form sheet.
do you want the quorum?
Yeah, I didn't grab them. Oh, are they, you know what, Madam Chairman, they're right in front of you. I can see them in the
They're in front of me?
thing.
Little clip.
Yep.
All right. That's Green Pond Road. We want Bournes Pond
On
Road,
Bourne
right?
Pond Road.
Ed, Michelle, Mike, Betsy, Tom, Mario, Tommy, and Court. I think it's all of us. Ed, Michelle, Mike, Betsy, Tom, Mario, Tommy, Court.
Yes, Madam Chairman, this was the presentation by BSS and Reposa. They submitted a new plan. We had asked them for a plan that was stamped by BSS Design. Can you double check the file and make sure that was submitted? I could have sworn they submitted that.
What's on, right?
Chairman.
Correct. 77 Boards Pond.
What's the person's first, oh, here it is.
Gibson?
Go ahead and give me the file, Madam Chairman, I can look.
New one from Reposa,
What's the date?
26th of
April?
Yeah.
That's it. Nope. Let me see.
No?
No, I'm looking for one, I could have sworn I saw that sheet on that.
Two calls.
We needed a stamped plan, Ed had brought that up, but the proposed
Oh, yeah.
plan needed to be
Right.
stamped by DSS, so, like I said, I think we have that in the office. And it was basically the pergola, the patio that they were, extending out, and it just cut that area, the pergola
Yeah,
out.
Courtney asked that the
pergola
pergola was
on
gonna be
top.
attached.
The deck, they were removing a portion of the deck and then reconfiguring the deck at that angle
Yes.
that goes out. We wanted, special condition will be phased work and a methodology submitted prior to work. Because they weren't really sure how they were gonna conduct it, what they were gonna do. Remember, Angela was saying they wanted to phase that in.
Oh, for the, I think they should come back for an amendment for that. They said they want to phase it in, but they didn't have anything about,
No, because they're going to submit a work methodology on how they're going to do that.
okay. No, but
Under
no
the
work is,
conditions, but if you want them to come back, that's fine.
well, if you're comfortable signing off on that,
Yeah, that'd be fine.
all right. It was very vague.
Yes.
I mean, I could say that for my yard.
Yeah,
I'd like
they
to
would-
deal with the invasives.
Here.
Have it here, here and there, the
yeah,
front
they're
and the
gonna
back
put a
and
limit
the
of
two
work on
sides.
the new plan. I mean, it's a lot of little work on the property, but the planting and the invasive removal, because it was vague, they do need to spell out a methodology, and that's gonna be a condition. And we can review the methodology, and we can have them submit it to the board.
Right.
And you can review it at a hearing.
Yeah, I think we
if you
should. I
want.
mean, because Mario
Okay.
asked, Courtney asked a question about it,
Okay,
Mario
so
asked a question
I'll
about
have
it.
them submit the work methodology to review that Conservation Commission hearing, and then you can add any additional
Conditions and
conditions
suggestions.
onto that methodology once we receive it.
Yep.
Okay.
Was there, if I may, through the chair,
Yep.
did we have a dry well detail on that plan as well? The latestly submitted one?
Honestly, I don't know, Tom, but I'll get a dry well detail.
Okay.
Because they would have to submit, Tom needed to submit a plan a stamped plan.
Okay.
Either stamps proposes plan or submits an as-built,
Okay.
an existing conditions plan that's stamped.
Right.
We'll take either one.
But Tom
Yeah.
specifically asked for a
For the
driveway
driveway
detail.
detail. Yep.
Okay?
Move to accept the order as discussed.
Second.
Second.
Okay, any other questions, suggestions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Henry and Martha Lartigue, 167 Fay Road. And that is
That was an amendment. that
Ed,
we were-
Ed, Michelle, Mike, Betsy, everybody.
Everybody?
Yeah.
Except for me, I refused.
So you did?
Yes.
That was the amendment.
What's that mean?
I guess it means
Yeah.
you accused himself, huh?
Reduce the size of the house.
Everybody but Tom.
I know, I'm waiting for Betsy. I don't know. Reconfiguring the house, reducing the footprint of the proposed structure, reducing the amount of mitigation planting that was necessary. reducing-
Irrigation system with a well.
Yep, they wanted to do, you wanted a test well done, Mike,
No.
on the,
They-
they wanted the test well.
No.
No, they
Where
wanted an
Where's the
irrigation,
well
Where-
gonna be?
they wanted an
The concern
irrigation
was
system with
access
a well
and
that they would,
equipment
with a
and-
private well.
No, I understand that. The irrigation system you're gonna allow, because they wanna do it on a well, but there was concerns about saltwater intrusion on that well.
I wanted to make sure they had good water before they
Yes.
ran all the.
Sorry, Mike, I thought it was, you did announce it, yeah.
And if they don't find good water, they can come back with an amendment.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Courtney.
I for one have a big problem with the irrigation system.
Okay.
And I will not support, I'll support the rest of the order, I think it's fine, but I will not support that part of it. We have been ruling recently on not having irrigation systems within this area, and I don't see why this is any more compelling. The only thing that they suggested was that they would have an own well. And while it was suggested in here that there might be some benefit because the well being close to where the water joins the sea, that it might have the effect of reducing in nitrogen, pulling nitrogen out of the groundwater. My big concern with a private well in this situation is that, as you all know, the Cape is a single source aquifer. So we're all drawing the water out of the same pool. And whether it's a town well and water system or private wells, it's all coming out of the same aquifer. And if that aquifer gets overtaxed, I don't care whether there's nitrogen being reduced or not, and I don't care where it is in location, you know, you reduce that thing, you're going to have saltwater intrusion. And once you have saltwater intrusion in a single source aquifer, forget it. Ask the people down in Florida. So I don't see that as a good solution. And again, if they plant you know, Falmouth-friendly lawns with 8 inches of loam, and they put fescue grasses in there that are drought tolerant, yeah, it's going to take some water to get it done. Well, they can figure that out while they get it established, but there's no need for that. And I'm not willing to buy the idea that the homeowner is going to be very responsible innately and very environmentally concerned and will not run the irrigation well when it's not supposed to be run, and he'll put rain sensors on it and all that stuff. But once we give it permitted, we have no control over that. Are we going to be down there monitoring when the well's running in the middle of when the irrigation system's running in a pouring rain? So I can't understand why this needs to have irrigation when we turn down similar situations elsewhere. So I would oppose that condition.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you. And
Well?
that we had a long discussion, and we have allowed irrigation in certain areas where there's a big buffer to whatever the resource is. In this case, the resource is Vineyard Sound. It's not one of the ponds. And I've had discussions with people like Arthur Aldrich and Maury when they were on the board, and some of the landscapers. These properties are going to be watering their areas, and in this kind of a situation where there's not going to be any issue of too much water on these, I mean, they do have these systems that are very well controlled. Now, a house, anybody who's seen that house, you can bet they're going to get the Cadillac system for controlling the water, which includes not watering when it's, you know, when the soil has a water content of above a certain amount. And so, you know, given that they're going to water this anyway, I would rather see the water come from a well than using town water. So I'd be in favor of doing it.
I think if we had a finding on how close it is to the sound, I think that does make a difference in terms of Courtney's concern on the aquifer. I mean, we're basically at the sea level. We're right at the tail of the aquifer. We're not pumping and causing. I mean, the saltwater intrusion from this well, I think, would be negligible. I understand the concern, and I think in other locations on the aquifer that would be a bigger concern. So as long as we have that finding of the location, so we don't set a precedent for just approving any well from here forward, it might help.
Yeah, I mean, my concern about you drilling into the single source aquifer that we have is it's the cumulative effect of drawing water from that well, and that's from that aquifer. And that's not just, you know, in and of itself, I agree with you, Betsy. You know, putting a well down in that one location in and of itself isn't an issue. But it's part of a cumulative thing. And if we don't look at protecting that single source aquifer, you know, it can be gone. I have a client that worked for me who lives in Saudi Arabia in Jeddah. And he has a farm 70 miles inland. And that part of Saudi Arabia works off of deep, deep wells. And he's had a farm there for generations. And in the last 10 years, because of the population growth and the water demands, his wells are now all salt, 70 miles from the Red Sea. So, you know, that's a real concern from my point of view. It's not just this guy's, it's a broader philosophical issue. It's not just this guy's putting a well down. And okay, it's not town water, so it's okay. But it's cut, and I don't care whether it's at the tail of the aquifer, it's still taking fresh water, and that's water, yeah, a lot of it's gonna go back in the ground because it's gonna sink, but you're gonna have evaporation. You're not gonna, it's not all out and then all back in. So that's my concern. Now, unfortunately, I'm just a history teacher and a builder. I'm not a scientist, so I'm only going on what I've read, and that's where it is. So I respectfully disagree. I will vote against the well, and I'll vote against the irrigation system, and if the commission decides they want to allow it, so be it, and we'll move on.
Okay, just one more comment, though. Your concern is well-founded, but just like in other cases, we take it case by case, looking at the findings.
Can I just
Yes.
add one thing about the aquifer from some of the books that I've read written by geologists writing about the geology of the Cape? I won't bother to name the authors who escape me right now, but there's actually two very significant works that have been published. The aquifer actually flows north to south. In fact, the deep aquifer goes all the way out under Nantucket, where it empties out into the Atlantic Ocean. So because the water, the aquifer, it flows. Water in the aquifer flows. We know that from the work done on the military base, tracking the polluted flume. If you look at the maps of the directions of those flumes from the base, everything is going south and sometimes west toward Buzzards Bay.
No,
So this particular
understood.
property is down there on our south coast, and any aquifer below this property is water that's moving underground out to sea.
Right.
So I think
But if you,
that plays a role in this particular site. I think the concerns you raise are less likely to be impactful.
I mean, my point is that, yeah, I know it flows. And this is at that point where the thing is going to enter the ocean. But my point is that this is going to become more and more of an issue on the Cape, like it does in a lot of single source aquifers. The more the population grows and the more you have of that, and you start over pumping that aquifer, I don't care which way it flows, but if more is going out than is going in, the salt water's coming in. And once it goes in, it's never going out again. That's an irrefutable fact.
Well, we're actually fortunate to have a hydrologist on our board, and I note that he's jotted down a few notes. Would he like to make some comments, or would he like us just to move on?
I think Courtney's wise to say we should probably identify when and when it's not appropriate. There are, just off the top of my head, there are at least 6 issues associated with installing a well at this particular property for a variety of reasons. I think you're okay, but I think we need some guidance as long as everything else so that we are more consistent here. We spoke of aquifer depletion, and that certainly, if you overpump, you have it. We spoke of saltwater intrusion, and if you're close enough to the well, that's probably, it's possible, but probably not likely in many locations. There's a potential of putting a well next to a septic system or a old cesspool, and that you can spread contamination during it. You have to ask yourself, should we be permitting them as a drinking water source? The water is being pumped and sprayed in the area, there could be people, children playing in the water, and the question is what's in the water, and should people be exposed to it? You certainly have the opportunity to lower the water table close to the well, which could change, if particularly if there was a vernal pool, you could alter the application going on. And the last one is if you have a off-site contaminant plume coming, the pumping of one well can change the direction of flow, so you can cause a plume to move and, quote, leapfrog contamination from one well to another. And that's just 6 points of sitting here thinking you're probably going to come up with a couple more. So I think some kind of guidance that we all can agree on makes sense. And I will start the process of identifying what I think are reasonable guidelines.
So the questions, the kind of questions we should be asking
Yes.
if people make this kind of a request.
Yes.
Why don't, if the board wants to go forward with this application, we could put a special condition, along with just, they have to come back.
Yeah, when they have more
To-
information.
When they have a
They have
location
to
and
come
a
back.
memo, not just a memo and a dot on a plan of where they're going to put that well. They need to come back to this board on the location of that well, because this, as Mike said, it's, impacting groundwater flow and everything else, which might not be too much of a concern in this area, but it's things this board should start thinking about, and you should start now.
Well, I think even they have to come back, and even just putting in, specifically, they have to say where the nearest certified vernal pool is. Are there any test wells in the area? Those are the two things
Sure.
that you just mentioned.
We should probably have some
Have that.
standard special conditions when what people want to put a well in.
Right.
Like
Right.
what you're suggesting. I
So-
think.
And it's possible that their well, they could have a very localized saltwater intrusion into that well, and are we gonna just let them put in another well? If and when that happens,
Right, and I think that's why Tommy
is that,
was,
you
Tommy
get one
was saying.
shot and you're done, or are they just gonna come back and ask for, oh, well, we got saltwater intrusion there, so we need a new well?
Yeah.
And that
So
we
we're
wanna
not
prevent
saying
that from
no,
happening.
we're not
You're
saying
not saying
yes,
yes, you're
we're
not saying
no,
no,
but we
you
need
need more information
information.
on the location of the well, that's fine.
Right, and the test, can't you do a test?
I think they do
Yeah,
a
You can
test.
do a
drill.
test and get some
Yeah.
water and see the quality of the water.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay, given that, do we have a motion? Courtney is still thinking.
Well, my motion would be to accept the proposed order with the exception of the well and the irrigation system. But if that may not be what people want.
I'm not gonna take your motion. Let's have another motion.
I,
Well, isn't that what
Tommy,
we
you're right,
want,
make a
though?
motion.
They have to come back for an amendment with the well information, so isn't that what we were just talking about?
Well, no, Courtney is cutting out the well.
Well,
Well,
I'm cutting out the well and the irrigation.
because we don't have enough information on it, so they would have to come back for an amendment with that.
Yeah, but that's not what Courtney said.
Well, I
Courtney
mean,
has-
I'm certainly,
information.
I'm fine with that at this point. But,
All right, so.
by and large, my general inclination is to be opposed to the irrigation system per se and the well. And for two separate issues.
Well, let's have a motion on the table, so we can kind of move on tonight.
I move that
Let
we
somebody else
accept
make the motion.
proposal
I'll make
as
my vote.
proposed, including the well and irrigation system.
With the special conditions that
They'll have to,
they'll have to come back,
Yeah.
tell us where they're gonna put the well, what kind of disturbance it's gonna be,
Yep.
whether that well would have any other impact on other wells and on vernal pools in the area.
I mean, we can write the special condition that they need to give you all this information, and at that point, there's no guarantee this board will.
Well, that's
approve
what
it.
that
Right.
motion makes it
Yeah.
sound like, is that it is approved as long as they bring us
Yeah.
information. And
Yeah.
I
But
think
I-
that's why Courtney's was more
Yeah.
appropriate, because we're not including the well at this point, because we don't have enough information. They would have to actually come back with an amendment with
And
that.
the other part of it is, in the other part, there are two parts of this. One is the well,
Okay.
and the second part is the fact that It's an irrigation system. I mean, if they hitch the irrigation system up to town water, you know, we have to look at it and say, would we accept that? They're gussying it up by saying, okay, we'll put a well in, so we're not taxing town water. My contention is, they're still taxing the water supply. So, I just have a problem with that whole thing. So, whatever motion the rest of the board wants to craft, that's fine. If it includes the irrigation system and the well, I'm gonna vote against it. And if it passes, that's fair enough, we'll move on.
Michelle, would you articulate the motion?
No, I
we're
don't
talking
understand
about?
what the motion is, so I don't think I should. We've got two
Okay,
options.
there are two options. You can move forward, approve the amendment with a special condition saying they need to come back to you with the location of the well to supply water to the irrigation system, you know, with certain criteria. And at that point, the board can say, yes, you agree with the location or not. Yes, you agree with the irrigation system or not. Or you can, at this point, approve the amendment without the irrigation system, make findings of why the irrigation system and the well are a concern to you, and say, you know, give them the option to come back for another amendment when they have more information
That's
about
what
the
we want.
location of
We
that
want that
well.
second one.
Okay,
We'll
so
approve
what you're
it.
gonna do is you're gonna approve the amendment without the irrigation or well.
And well.
And well, yeah. So
So
no
it was the
well,
motion
no
that Courtney
irrigation.
made.
Yeah.
And then they'll have the opportunity to come back when they flush out this well idea.
I second
To
it.
more of an extent.
So
Okay.
moved.
He made the motion, I second
Okay,
it.
but it was just,
So the motion is that we're gonna accept the order as presented with the exception of the well and irrigation system.
Yes.
And
Period.
we give them the option of coming back once they have more information.
okay, Courtney, Michelle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Motion to adjourn?
No,
No,
one
we
more.
got a few more.
We need to do 23 Green Pond Road.
These
That
aren't due
was-
till next?
Well, we'll do it tonight.
Oh,
There's been a request,
okay.
so that's just a small amendment to the
Wait.
green.
I have to tell you who we are.
I'm recused from this
Yes, I understand
Courtney's
that.
recused. Tommy, Mike, Betsy. Tom, Mario, Michelle, Ed. Tommy,
Betsy.
Mike, Betsy. Tom, Mario, Michelle, Ed.
Okay.
It made it smaller.
They made the footprint much smaller than the original scope. They had to reduce the scope of the project. The only issue on this was that Tom was going back and forth about the foundation, because they weren't sure if the foundation was gonna be necessarily need to be rebuilt. My recommendation was just have them, give them the option of rebuilding the foundation, because in my mind, I think it's gonna need to be done.
Let's just do that.
That would
It's
be,
not gonna create that much more disturbance on the site, and I think it needs to be done.
motion to accept the order as just discussed.
Second.
Any further questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Now you may adjourn.
Who wants to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
No, you only need to say it once, Ed.
Tom, that's what you want.
Aye, aye.
Give them the option of rebuilding the.
You know where it gotta go.
Yes.
I know
Where the
Tom's
aye
trying
comes
to
from. I understand, I will
dance
comply.
around that. I don't think he wanted
The
to.
language is in there, then it's
Yeah, you
covered.
might as well just
And I
let
love
him.
my commanding officer.